least 100,000 people have gathered in the Ukrainian capital for a major anti-government protest. The opposition's warning that this rally is the last chance, as they put it, for the government and the president. Paul Scott's there live for us. Hi, Paul. When we last spoke to you, thousands out on the streets. I guess no change. Are there any more, do you think?
Yeah, well, there's still ambiguity over the exact figures, but the certainty is that thousands do still remain in the square behind me, despite the bitterly cold conditions. And there's also no uncertainty over the key demands of the opposition as well. Heavyweight boxing world champion Vitaly Klitschko taking to the stage behind me and urging the protests and the protesters to remain peaceful, while simultaneously giving the government an ultimatum. But I have to say, despite Klitschko's calls, we can report this evening that masked men carrying nationalistic flags have pulled down a statue, a monument to Lenin, and smashed it with sledgehammers. Elsewhere today, there are a number of key demands being outlined by the opposition as part of that ultimatum. These include the fact that protesters should be released, any protesters who have been arrested throughout the course of these demonstrations, and that those that clamped down violently on the protesters last weekend should be punished. Other key demands include the resignation of President Viktor Yanukovych and his government and an immediate election. Now, on their part, the opposition have called for a nationwide general strike, and they continue to surround and blockade key governmental, departmental, administrative buildings here in the centre of Kiev. For their part, the Ukrainian security services say they're investigating what they are calling an attempt to seize power in the country. And it's also emerged on Sunday that the EU's foreign policy representative Catherine Ashton is set to visit Kiev later this week to try and find a political solution to the crisis. And the whole movement really has been buoyed this weekend by support from European officials, as my colleague Irina Galushka now reports.
Ukraine is not the only EU neighbor seeing anti-government anger on its streets, but for some reason Kiev's Independence Square has captured the minds of politicians from Europe and the US. We have seen a veritable parade of them here, rubbing elbows with the opposition leaders and even sometimes taken to the stage to speak for the crowds. And yet few seem to have made the path to hear it from both sides, from the country's leaders and their supporters.
From an assistant US Secretary of State,
we stand with the people of Ukraine who see their future in Europe and want to bring their country back to economic health and unity.
To the former Polish president.
The supporters of Euro integration must remain firm and seize the momentum of the protest. This is the only way they can get Yanukovych to make concessions.
And current members of the European Parliament.
We support civil society and democratic opposition in its claim to have possibility for the nation to express its will and choice, which means early elections.
What began as a pro-EU push descended into an out-and-out attack on the leadership. The usual buzzwords of democracy, justice and the will of the people were interspersed with not-so-subtle calls for President Viktor Yanukovych to admit he's been beaten.
I mean, this is clear interference in the internal affairs of a sovereign country, and they're not even hiding it anymore. So this is something that should be unacceptable as a democratic standard.
Widely seen as a clear breach of diplomatic conduct, it also raised questions in Moscow.
I can imagine how our German partners would have felt if Russia's foreign minister decided to attend a rally that was being held against German rules. I don't think they would consider it a friendly step. Meeting with opposition members is one thing, but taking part in rallies, that's interference in domestic affairs.
Early in the week, the government survived a no-confidence vote in the Ukrainian parliament. Defeated by the democratic process, opposition MPs went on to block the stage and stalling parliament. Outside, protest leaders called on people to take over as many civic offices as possible.
The idea of the whole process of walking is to show that Ukrainians are ready to be part of Europe and they can protest in a peaceful European manner. Of course, majority of the people are trying to keep it civil or keeping it peaceful, but what exactly will happen later in the day, we have yet to find out.